what I would love you all to do if you're starting preseason this week or next week, just ease your players back into it in the first week. A player vomiting isn't the way to judge the quality of your session, right? So we sometimes laugh about it as coaches, of course we do, but it's not the way to judge how good your session is or how tough your session is. Just remember, some of your players, well, all of your players have finished a period of the year where most people relax and most people indulge. So many of you listening won't be professional coaches and won't have professional teams, right? So I assume so many of you won't have skin fold measurements when they arrive back, right? So you've got to ease them into it. Because if you go straight to top gear, that can cause injuries. And if the injuries don't happen this week, they can happen in future weeks further down the track. Even worse, particularly if you're dealing with training where it's a more community rather than representative scenario, players could vote with their feet if they're finding training a bit too tough. And at best, they'll manage their own fitness away from your club. At worst, that will be at somebody else's club, right? So the way to judge the quality of your session is how many times your players are pushing each other, how many of them are really working hard, but also they crack a smile when the time comes and have good interaction with each other, and they show each other encouragement and share senses of accomplishment when they've achieved a task or at the end of the session, because you want them to be a handy, fit, and skillful rugby league player. And the best guide you'll have is how many players keep turning up to your training. So if there's an increase, players are enjoying your training. If there's a decrease, there's something you need to look at. Every player is desperate to have some ball in the hands, so give them some ball in the hands. You're training them for a rugby league. You're not training them for the Olympics. So 400-meter runs, leave that to the athletes. 100-meter sprints, leave that to Usain Bolt, right? You use your imagination as a coach and do tasks where they get kilometers in their legs and also some skill development at the same time. But have a think about the running patterns in rugby league and how you can duplicate them in a training session. So how often does your prop run 100 meters in one straight line at full whack? Or do you think they run 10 times 10 meters at full whack after a period of lower intensity activity? If you want to prepare your players for the game, well, I've just described two things that achieves 100 meters at full whack. But if in a game the prop runs 10 meters, biggest intensity he can or she can, they'll probably get a period for about a minute where they're walking and jogging, but in some of that, they will have to do some tackles as well before the next one. So if you were to do a drill, for example, if for some reason you want your players to do 100 meters, right? So make them do 10 meters really fast, jog, walk, and then another 10 with gaps of, say, 20 seconds, for example. So that's the direction I want you to start thinking in, quite frankly, if you want to modernize your training a little bit. And of course, props and everybody runs with the ball in the hand. So have a think about these things while I'm taking you through these sessions that I'm going to take you through. So I'm just looking at it now. I'm looking at the time thing that I have to make sure the podcast is about an hour. I do want to play the analysis video at the end of this, which I did on Mikey Lewis. So you'll get the audio. It's about 12 minutes, the video. If you are also listening to Super League 360 or you've seen the analysis video on YouTube, I want you to start telling me so that I don't tag them onto the end of these podcasts, okay? Part of the reason I'm tagging them on the end of these podcasts is I want you to go, oh, well, I'd like to see that video on YouTube. So what's going to happen is these two plans I give you are going to be the last things I record for you today. And these are therefore going to include your coaching tips. And there's no Lee's musings today either. So, this will help me plan the timing of these podcasts in future weeks. Okay. So I'm still learning. It's only the fourth season. And what I've also decided is the way I'm going to do these, I've got two plans for you that are quite similar. So I'm going to target one plan at sort of 11 and 12-year-olds and another one at A-grade players. So we cover age 11, 12 and sort of 20 upwards kind of thing. So that's quite a wide range of things there. So I would certainly do some kind of introductory session either on the same night. I know a club that's doing it on the same night this week. They're talking to the players in a room, hand out any notes and booklets to your players or parents and players, talk to them about your principles and your focus and your goals for the year, mark your territory early with your team. So if you've not got that in mind and you're listening to this podcast, I would seriously consider doing that very soon in the first 2 weeks. Okay. Anyway, first field session. I always think the first field session of the year should always be about grip, pass, catch, carry. Just get loads of passing going in their hands. Okay. So the first way I'm going to describe it to you is for juniors. So I would literally introduce the warm-up routine that you want to follow. So in terms of warm-ups, don't send your players on a lap of the oval. I always think have a few warm-ups that you want to do that relate to the game. I'm going to give you 4 right now that I often use. One of them is passing in a grid. A second one is passing in across the field and getting wider and wider and wider and then shorter and shorter. It's called width pass, and you'll see that on YouTube and on rugbyleaguecoach.com.au. Another one is 3v2 in a grid, and another one is a small-sided game. They can be 4 warm-ups that I rotate, okay? So today I'd warm up with grip, pass, catch, carry. I'd also introduce how I want them to stretch, okay? And the type of stretches I want them to do, the dynamic stretches. So I find if you do the following high knees, bum flicks, as I call them, Google these if you don't know what they are, or write to me. Hamstring flicks that can often be called Hitlers. Unfortunately, you're talking to a guy here who coached Poland and accidentally told the players to do Hitlers in the middle of Poland, right? So I'm scarred by that one. And then you can do karaoke or side to sides to stretch the groin and the upper leg areas and some twisting and whatnot. So hard to describe in a pod. But again, I've got all the resources. I've got all the videos on YouTube and the Rugby League Coach YouTube and on rugbyleaguecoach.com.au that can help you with that. And then I would do literally on the first night with younger players, sort of 11s and 12s, I'd do a series of drills and games where all they do is focus on grip, pass, catch, carry. Okay? So the reason for that is you're developing players for the long term, okay? And this is the first session of the year. So just have a session where you've got the ball in the hands all the time. And if you're training for an hour, by the time you've warmed up, you're probably talking 3 or 4 different activities, drills and games. And the more fun you can create, the better. And end that hour for 15 minutes with a small-sided game where there's turnovers if players don't grip, pass, and catch and carry the ball in the way you want. And another one is make sure they play the ball with the foot. Okay? So that's the first session for the juniors. I'll do the seniors in a moment after I've done the second session. So the second session is we're going to go into a bit more lines of run considerations now. So again, we're going to warm up with the grip pass catch carry to remind them of the last session. But then we're going to go straight into games. And there's a game I have online called Restricted Pass, the Restricted Pass game. Okay. And the key thing on this, I'm teaching them about running unders lines. I'm teaching them about adequate width from the ruck and how they hold the ball going into the collision, etc. And then in this, we can also have in this game, we can also have plays, or you can have. I wouldn't necessarily suggest too many plays yet with the juniors, but you can have your halves catching the ball and passing it again at appropriate width and appropriate length of pass to an ongoing runner. So again, please have a look at the restricted pass game on YouTube. I know it's on there. Just type in restricted pass game, rugby league, and my YouTube channel will come up. And you can play that game for 8 minutes and 2-minute rest, and you can focus on different things each time. So your first time you play it might be you just want players to run unders lines, for example. And then the second time you play it, you might focus on, okay, I now want the appropriate width at the ruck, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's literally what I would do in the second session. So in 2 sessions with my juniors, we've done grip, pass, catch, carry, unders lines, width from the ruck, and the importance of holding the ball, because the way you play the game, you can then use your defense. You can say to the defense, you have to go down, up and down on every tackle if you're defending. So your players will want to hold the ball and look after it. So you've taught them these things. Okay. So that's for the juniors. For the seniors, session 1, I would still start with grip, pass, catch, carry. Now, I wouldn't necessarily go into massive detail about the way people grip, pass, catch, carry when they're senior men, or in particular, okay, because they think they're too good for it. But I would, remind them to get the hands up in the warm up, etc., etc. I'd introduce your stretching routine, similar to what I've just described for the juniors. But then I would look at introducing tackle technique straight away. So one of the philosophies I work to with seniors is get them tackling with their shoulder straight away. Okay. So depending on the numbers you have, let's say you have 40 players, okay? That's going to be what I'm going to say, because we're talking about A grade type football, if you like, or seniors opens. Split them into 2 groups. One practicing tackle technique on shields, all right, and repetitive on shields. The other one on this night, because again, you've got a need to get your players conditioned. Okay. I would do speed conditioning. So it might be 5 times 100 meters on the minute. Okay. Now, I don't like doing a lot of this in training. Now, remember I told you earlier about the 100 meters. Don't make the players run 100 meters 5 times. Make them do 10 tens. So imagine 2 cones 10 meters apart, or you can do 20 meters, right? And do that 5 times. They've got between the 20-meter markers that are 20 meters away, they have to be full pace. So if you jog up to the cone, sprint to the other cone, and then pull up after the cone, and then back, that is speed conditioning, basically. Okay, so you keep them on the minute. Now, the term on the minute is You do all them in the minute, so you do your 5 on the minute, and sorry, within that minute, and let's say that takes you 45 seconds, you get 15 seconds rest again before you have to go again. Okay. So do sets of 3 on that, give 2 minutes rest after that. Okay. Unless your players are really fast and then it's easy for them, just crank it up a little bit. So you've got two teams. Some have done tackle technique, some of them have done that drill, and then they swap. Okay. So that's 10 minutes on each station, basically. And then I would go into a skilled conditioning game where the focus is on ruck offense. Okay. Now, that ruck offense will probably include your plays. So, again, I would play the restricted pass game that I talked about. So, the big difference between the senior session and the junior session is I'm just allowing the kids to run around and do these activities because they will bring energy. The seniors were putting some conditioning into it and also putting some defense into it too. And depending on how they're feeling, you may be able to put some shoulder or some collision into this everybody restricted pass game. But what I would do with the seniors is I would make them go everybody down. So everybody gets down and up on every play the ball for at least one period of it. And again, I'd play in 8 minute segments. So 3 times 8 minutes with 2 minutes rest. Quite frankly, your players will be flamingoed. Okay. So that's session 1 for them. Session 2, you would do the same warm up again, but this time you would also introduce the 3v2. So you'd go back to the 2 stations after you've done your warm up in the passing method, but then you'd go back to 2 stations again. And you'd in your station that was all about tackle technique, you'd then introduce your ruck defense strategies. So how you want to kill some momentum in defense. And again, what I would do with that would just introduce one method and nail it in a drill format. And then in the other, they're doing the speed conditioning again. Okay. Very similar to what we did the other day, but just make it look different. So, for example, if you did 5 times 20s times 5 on Tuesday, today do 10 times 10s or however many by 15, just make it look different. Okay. In the speed conditioning section. So they're still in 2 groups again and they double up. Now, you're going to play the same restricted pass game again, but this time your focus is all on ruck control. Okay. So when you play the restricted pass game again and it's everybody down, you want to stand behind your players, making sure that they go in with their shoulder and control the ruck. And if they don't, you give the opposition more tackles. Okay. So with the games that you play in training, you can do whatever you want with the rules. So if you want to get an outcome in attack, you can say to the players, it's a turnover if you don't do certain things. Or if you start at the same place all the time and each set starts in the same place, you send them back to the start if they have the ball for a set amount of time. In defense, you can get one team to defend constantly for an 8 minute period. And if they don't do what you want with shoulders and ruck control, you just say 6 again, or repeat set 4 again, whatever it is. If they succeed, you send them back to the start. Or if it's a game where possession changes all the time, you just use the 4 again or the 6 again in terms of the game. Okay. So to help you with those plans, have a look at those drills online on the YouTube channel, Width Pass Rugby League on the YouTube channel, Rugby League Coach. Also look for the warm-ups, the stretches on there too. And also look for the restricted pass game. Okay. So I'm sure listening to that, you will have some questions or any, you can ask it about anything basically. Like I said, the podcast I do want to do other things in future weeks where I give you some more direct coaching tips. Okay. But I do think I've actually give you quite a lot of coaching tips in that plan there too. So look, I'll check out now. I'm going to leave you with the Mikey Lewis analysis video audio. Admin at rugbyleaguecoach.com.au if you want to email me at Rugby League Coach on socials. For the rest of this podcast, you're going to listen to the audio of the Mikey Lewis analysis. I love your work. I will see you next week. Take care.